so you've probably been following along. I've done a 3-part series where I've gone through and modeled a speaker cabinet, I've animated the speakers, and now that I'm in a point where I really want to just make a nice little render to show what I've done, and I thought I'd just highlight the process that I usually go through when I try and sort out colors, making some materials, and then getting it ready to actually make a render. So let's get straight into this one. Alright, so back in front of Blender, and I've got this all set up from where we left off. So I've got the animation set up for each of the drivers, all the speakers are working the way I want, and now I want to sort of go into that staging stage, because right now a basic point light and a camera just makes this look a little bit 90s. Now I do have a bit of a higher spec machine, and I'm not expecting people to work in cycles, but I'm going to be using the shader nodes to create some basic flat colored shaders, maybe add a slight bit of noise to give it a bit of interest, but really we can work in either cycles or Eevee. I'm just going to work in cycles for now because it's a bit nicer, but right now we don't need to be in the animation tab. We're going to jump straight over to the shading tab. Now I'm just going to focus on the actual colors. Now when it comes to colors, like I usually end up making a palette, but sometimes I do prefer to get a palette. So I find a nice way to like block in the major colors I want and kind of like go online and have a look. One of the places I really enjoy going is a place called Color Hunt, and this is just a website that has nice palettes that work really nice together. I sort of highlighted the sort of color I want. I do like the yellow in the speaker, but I'm looking more for like a pastel color set, so I'm just having a big something like that could work. Maybe have some red speakers with white outlines, so I might use just those colors, or actually we can add the tag. I might add pastel, so something a little bit more Instagram fabulous. Now that actually looks pretty nice. Yeah, let's stick with this one here. So as you can see, it's bringing up the hex code. So if I select it, it should go into it, and then I can like copy and paste these codes. So I do have an ultra wide monitor. I'm just going to drag that to the side. I'm going to put that to the side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some different materials. So just working on the cabinet, we are in the viewport mode, so we'll be able to see the color, but I'm just going to create a new material. We can also come to the material properties, and as you can see, we've got material 1 there. We can name it here or name it up there as well, but I'm just going to call this and then what we can do is we can actually take these colors. So what I might do is use that beige, and we can select hex, and then we can paste the hex into that value there. So now that we've brought that color across, I might go through and start tweaking some of these settings once they're all applied to the objects, but for now I'm just going to sort of lay out the basic colors that I want. So with the drivers, I want that yellow, but we'll see if I want like a black or a white outline. So I'm just going to create a new one, driver color, just so when I start editing the colors, I can see what I'm working on. Now, there's different areas of this that I want to change. So what we can do is we can come in here and go add. We can add a new color. I just want to create the cone and the outside color. So I'm just going to call that cone, and then I want to probably select this. So I'm just blocking in really. But it didn't change anything, and this is where we need to go into the actual mesh itself. So we've got that selected. What I might do is we'll just do that first. So we can go assign, and that's given it the new color. So what we can do, it's just a bit hard to try and select all this geometry here. So what I like to do is I usually come in from the outside. So sometimes it likes to play nice. There we go. And then what I want to do is go control, and then I want to select all the geometry around that, and then I can click assign again on the cone, and that's given that. And then what I might do is I'm just going to create a third color, new. I'm probably going to keep it that base white and call that the rim. So this is like the bit that attaches and holds on. Same thing again, I'm going to select that, hold Alt and select the rim, Control plus, and then I select all that. I can select rim and assign. So it's just a quick way to set up material IDs of our object. Now I will need to go through each one of these and add the colors, but now we're sort of creating a bit of a color library. Like I can select this, go into here, I want the cabinet color on there. And then if I want to change the colors, I can go in and edit them the way I want. So what I might do now, actually we'll copy that, we'll get all the basic colors in there, and I'll do a bit of YouTube magic to get to the next point. So we've got the cream, and I'm just constantly sort of checking, but really I can't really tell what the colors are going to be properly until I come into this mode. And like there's some things where it's a bit shiny in that, so we'll just get all the colors in, and then we can start talking about the like roughness and that. Cool, so I've gone through and added all the colors where they need to be. So set up the material IDs, I've got all the colors there, but really if I jump into the rendered preview, still looks a little flat, and really the lighting isn't helped. Like point lights are so like 90s CGI. So what I'm going to do, instead of using a point light, I'm going to add an environment map to light the entire scene. And that's where we use a HDRI, which is pretty much just a 360 image. Now, where I like to go to get like a HDRI for some basic lighting is I use Polygon. So they're a CC0 way of getting like lights to work with. And what I'm going to do is select one of these and pretty much just bring it in. And I like a bit of color, like a bit of outdoor color, because this is all going to bounce onto our object and make our render look really nice. So I think something like this will work really nice. So we've got the sun in the horizon, so we can use that to point the light in, because really this is actually adding light to our scene. So we don't need something crazy. I'm just going to pick a 1K, so it's a megabyte download. Just download it, and we're going to use that for our model. So just move that off to the side. And what I'm going to do, instead of in this shader, instead of object mode, I'm just going to hide myself. We want to set this to world. So this is the way our world is lit. So as you can see in the background here, it's gray, but we can actually use that to like change how the light comes into our scene. So we're going to be overriding that with the actual HDRI. So if I just bring that in, drag it on as a file, we're going to see that we've got our HDRI here, but we're in the wrong object. So this is an image object, and it's not giving us the right information that we need. So if we go Shift A, and we're going to look inside the texture, and we want an environment texture. So you can do that, or you can type in environment texture in the search. We're going to bring that in, and then with node editor, we can just click and drag that one across, and then it's probably going to come up purple because there's no information. But if we select that, hey look, our nice little environment map is already set up. So now this is at a ton of different color and bouncing to our scene. We can just get rid of this point light now. We don't need that just yet, but we can see that we've got like the sunrise in the morning. So this is really cool. I do have a object, so I have a plugin called Node Wrangler. So if I select this and go Control T, it's going to add a mapping node. So the way we want to set this up is, because I'm not expecting you to put Node Wrangler or add-ons on, Control A, we're going to type in mapping, select that, and we bring the vector into this vector. We just want to connect this up the way it is, and on our mapping node we want to add a texture coordinate. So we type in texture coordinate, cool, and then we want to drag the generated into the vector here. So this chain just tells the engine that where the light is coming from. So what this allows us to do is we can come in here and actually rotate our skybox. Now we want to just rotate it on the Z, so we want to rotate it this way, and then we can sort of adjust the lighting. But I don't want to use this like as the whole lighting of the scene, like I'm just giving it a bit of light. So we're going to add some extra stuff on top. So what I want to do is just turn the strength down, not to absolutely nothing, but probably somewhere there, because we're just giving it a bit of extra, maybe a bit more, because now we're going to add some like soft lighting and some highlights just to make the speakers themselves pop a bit. So what I'm going to do now is we can do most of the lighting work in the shading properties. It's not going to be too much. We're going to add an area light, and you can see it's just there. If we hit G and Z, we can bring this up. Now, this is going to give me a nice top-down lighting. It's nice and soft. We can scale it up a bit. And I will say I am working with a 4080, so this is making a lot of this sort of preview stuff a lot easier. And don't be like working in Eevee as well, like it's still giving the same like level of detail. It's just a different way of lighting, so don't feel like having one or the other is bad. Like it's perfectly fine to do Eevee. I've done that a lot with my videos. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to start, I've got my base lighting, now I'm just going to start adding some nice sort of 3D to it. So it's like, because it's a box shape, I sort of want to give each three planes a different sort of exposure. So I want the tops nice and highlighted, and just to make them look a little bit more 3D. And like we've got a nice shadow appearing there, but I might bring that down a little bit. So bring that down, and then I want to add some of this highlight here. So we've got some nice lighting like that. And what I might do is add a bit of a kicker light. So I don't have one set up here, but having some sort of highlight behind is really nice. So what I might do is I'm just going to make a spotlight. So grab that, it's facing down, so I can bring that up. And then using this little point, I'm just going to drag that point onto the mesh. Probably bring the whole thing down. And then if we look through the camera, we'll soften the light up as well. So just giving a bit of a highlight there. So if I just ramp it up, you can see that it's giving a bit of a shine. And we could give it a bit of an extra color. So probably a bit of magenta, just to separate the three faces. So this is looking a bit nice. I've got a bit of a different frame. So usually what I like to do is have the camera just pointing in the center of the frame, so we can select the camera that way and then use G. Probably scale this out, so scale X. Cool, and then if we do a render here. Cool, so with our first pass render, we've got some nice looking lighting. We've got the speakers there. I don't like that this ring and this one are pretty much looking similar. I might make that a little bit more contrasty, but we've got some elements. We've got that blur happening from the animation, and then yeah, it looks really nice. So I just moved the camera to where I think my eye is thinking, but if you're feeling like you need a little bit more help with adjusting the camera and that, what we can do is in the camera or object data setting, so we select the camera itself, under viewport display guides, we can actually turn on thirds. And thirds is just a really useful way of like getting something in frame. So as you can see, I've got like certain points hitting on it. It's not super precise. I just felt like when I set up the frame, we can do that. But another way we can help with setting up the camera, because it's a bit of a pain to like grab it and then rotate it, we sort of just want it focused on those two speakers. So we'll probably just go in this mode. Just going to hit Shift A, and this is where empties become really handy. I'm just going to grab a plane axis, and I would just want to drag this up a little bit just between the speakers, and this is going to be our target for the camera to look at. So I'm going to select the camera, and then under the little like bike gear things are object constraints, add object constraint track 2, and then what I want to do is I'll click this little eyedropper here, and then I'm going to select the empty that we just created. So what that gives us is if I drag this camera, no matter where it is, so if I just go inside, it's always going to follow and look at that position there. So I can use this as a really nice way to like figure out where I want that sort of like camera stuff. And like I said before, if you've dragged it out and you really enjoy it, and like I'm just looking there, I know that these cables are going to be all right, but if like you said, they're just a little bit too like they finish at the start of the frame, what we can do is select the cable itself, hit tab, grab these points, and then we can go G, and then see how it goes through the ground. We want to sort of keep it on that plane, If we go Shift Z, that's just going to always keep it on that planar axis, and then we can go GZ. Something's clipping a little bit there, so we can raise that up. There we go, we've got the cables there. I'm just going to tab, select out, select that one. Sweet. We have a nice little speakers set up. If I take another render, have a look. So I'm just looking at this to inspect what the frame's looking like, but I'm pretty stoked with that. And what I might do is I'm just going to set this up for an animation, then I can use that throughout all these videos to make them look really nice. So now it comes time to rendering, and what I like to do, so I use my GPU just so it makes this a little bit easier to render. All those settings are pretty much fine, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretty much just gut this 0, because this is like light bounces and it's just going to make it run a little bit nicer. So probably give it 2, yep, that's looking nice. Glossy, that we've got some basic materials, but I feel like that sort of pastel style works with this. And then I'm just going to jump into the render settings. So I'm going to set up a spot where I'm going to render out to. I like doing it to a project file, so just keeping my naming convention. Blender, we're going to create a new folder. Double click in there, and then I'm just going to call this cool. So I've got it pointing to a position where I'm going to render, and there's a couple of ways I can render it. So right now it's going to save out a whole bunch of different images, which perfectly fine. I can bring that into some animation suite or some editing suite like DaVinci Resolve, and then that will become a movie clip, which works really well. But sometimes when I'm lazy, I just like rendering out a video. Sometimes this is bad, especially if you're rendering a lot of long content, like if it breaks or your computer dies, that's your whole video gone. You can render again, or if you render out PNGs, you can start from where the PNG failed and just keep rendering forward. So pros and cons, but this is a little video that I'm not really seeing. I'm just going to make a nice little visual. So I'm just going to render an FFmpeg, go down to encoding, and I just like setting it to MP4 just because I know MP4 runs on a lot of different things. I want to set the output quality to perceptually lossless. Like it's really good, but we just care about the colors that we've got here. So perfectly fine, but I think that's really nice for the encoding. Now I'm usually work at 30 frames per second. So if you're animating this to a specific frame rate, so I typically work to 30 frames per second, but for this one, I'm just going to keep it at 24. So if I was to just do some quick math in my head, and I want like a 5-second animation of the speakers actually moving, because really I had that full song that I was playing. So 5 seconds, or what we can do is go 2000, add 5 times 24, and math, it's going to do it all for us. And there we go, I've got 120 frames that I need to render out. And that's going to render out the whole sequence, 24 frames at 1080p. We could make it 4K, but typically I work in 1080 still, so it just keeps it easy. And if I render a frame now, so I pretty much took back a whole bunch of the light paths. We'll see how long it's going to take. It reckons the last frame was 17 seconds, so I'm expecting it to be similar. But I could cut some light frames there and cut it down. So 16 seconds. But when you render in Eevee, like this is the Power Eevee, you don't have to sit there and wait. I'm just going to flip that 256 because I'm very generous, and hit, boom, that's already done. It's like a second. So you can render out that sequence on a low powered machine and still get a really nice result in the end of it. So I'm just going to render out this sequence and probably call it there. So I thank you so much for sticking around with this full video. It's just nice to create these sort of little animations, but really the concepts in here to like create a really nice piece to show people and like get it out there. And really, if you're a musician and definitely like make and play music, like definitely adding 3D and experimenting with different ways to show what you're doing, especially here on YouTube. And I'll be very happy to see what you make. So definitely tag me in it if you make some speakers. But in the end, if you think this one was really useful and you think it's going to help someone else out, definitely hit that thumbs up, because it does help the algorithm push this to other people that probably are looking into Blender and just bringing 3D into their work. Like, I really do run a music channel here, but I feel like adding like different elements to like how you make music, or just like show it, because like with 3D there's a bunch of different ways that we can like visualize what's going on, and a basic pair of speakers, like, it is nice to be able to make something like that. So really happy. But if you have any comments or queries with this series, please feel free to leave it down below in the comments, because I really do try and support this type of content, and I do want to see more people pick up 3D. So that's all why I built this nice little Blender for Music series. So in the end, if you really enjoyed that one, definitely feel free to stick around. But yeah, thank you for watching this one, and I hope to see you next time.